We just need to figure out what he's after.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
In this Part 2 video, we explore the outcomes of the Asons Scrutiny meeting and review the timeline of events. We won't be singling out any opposition parties or councillors for praise, because we think it's been fantastic that they've all come together, put aside political differences, and we don't want this to become about which opposition party rips the biggest chunks out of the Asons scandal. We think they all did a fantastic job in representing the public, and we will highlight the points that they raised. Now, what took place over the Asons scandal is quite unbelievable, so we've decided to make it into a fun little game. You get to play the role of Chief Executive Margaret Asquith. We then ask you a question, and you choose out of the options listed what action you would take. Are you ready? Let's begin. The Asons scandal breaks in the Bolton News on the 12th of November 2016. The headline reads, "Council accused of running dictatorship after secretly approving £300,000 grant to town centre law firm." Do you, as the Chief Executive, A, within days, inform opposition parties first and then the Bolton News that the funding for the grant was taken from an £8.9 million Bolton Town Centre Strategy funding budget established in 2013. In that budget, you specifically draw attention that the money was taken from the Strengthening the Office Market allocation? Or do you, B, wait 41 days during which a massive protest against the council involving hundreds of people draws regional attention, then allow senior Labour councillor Adia to inform the public and opposition parties via the Bolton News that the funding came from a 2013 Bolton Town Centre Strategy budget without stipulating which of the three £1.5 million allocated budgets this refers to? Make your decision. If you chose option A, congratulations, common sense has prevailed, but you're not Chief Executive material. The answer that Margaret Asquith chose was option B. On to the next roleplay question. You, as Chief Executive, have now failed in your due diligence because you have allowed Bolton Council to become politically aligned to Labour. There is now a scrutiny meeting attended by 60 members of the public, Granada reports live, and over 30 angry people are outside demanding to be let into the meeting because you have allowed council leader to intentionally limit public exposure. Yet, it is being live streamed to hundreds. During this scrutiny meeting, it is brought to your attention that the £1.5 million funding from the Business Support Scheme eligibility criteria does not allow Asons to receive the funding. This document is then given to you for review. Do you, as Chief Executive, A, immediately inform councillors and the public that the money was not taken from the £1.5 million Business Support Scheme, it was actually taken from the Strengthening the Office Market allocation, and therefore the eligibility and criteria highlighted does not apply to this funding release? Or do you, B, at the scrutiny meeting, do not dispute the claim that the funding was taken from the Business Support Scheme? Instead, wait till the day after to find a reasonable excuse as to where the money came from, deciding upon the Strengthening the Office Market £1.5 million pot that has no criteria, eligibility, and is only a proposed pot of funding that has remained untouched for 3 years. Make your decision. If you chose option A, congratulations, common sense has prevailed, but you're not Chief Executive material. The answer that Margaret Asquith chose was option B. You, as the Chief Executive, have finally put to bed the Asons scandal. You've reassured the public where the money came from, and most of all, it was all within established criteria and eligibility that don't exist. It is now revealed to you that your quoted funding pots stated in your letter are in fact completely wrong, because on the 19th of January 2015 the funding was reallocated. Your Business Support Scheme allocation only contains £200,000 and your Strengthening the Office Market allocation only contains £500,000. You are now presented with a problem of choosing between a budget that is missing £100,000 short of the £300,000 grant and a funding budget in which 60% of the money was allocated to one business. You have to choose between being completely incompetent or utterly incompetent. Do you A. resign along with Council Leader Clifford Morris for allowing Bolton Council to be brought to its knees in scandal caused by incompetent Bolton Council officers and an incompetent Council Leader who used emergency powers without justification? Or do you B. bury your head in the sand and hope that nobody discovers any details of the Clarence Street construction and that the opposition parties are not going to expose any more serious failings under your lack of leadership? Make your decision. If you chose option A, congratulations, common sense has prevailed, but you're not chief executive material. We believe Margaret Asquith will choose option B. Games and mockery aside, all of these issues are serious. It has been alleged that Labour MP Ivan Lewis, the mayoral candidate for Greater Manchester, housed his campaign team at none other than Asons. If this proves to be true, this is yet another strong Labour connection to Asons. What doesn't help those allegations is that in early January 2017, Ivan Lewis for mayor.co.uk was active, and now just over 1 week after the scrutiny meeting, it's error 404, aka gone. The foundations for Clarence Street had already been completed before the construction project was abandoned. The public needs to know the costs of that abandoned construction, who paid it, and the sale value of the land from Bolton Council to Asons, and then Asons back to Bolton Council. Now, we will focus on the grant funding agreement, the contract that stipulates the terms and conditions for the £300,000. Under the grant funding agreement for the £300,000, it states, staff shall mean employees, volunteers and agency staff. Within that contract, it also states 3.9.2 locate at least 80% of its members of staff at the property. So this means they could employ one person off-site and have 4 volunteers wandering around the Asons office, and they'd still be eligible for the funding. There are no criteria for the number of staff they must employ. Let me just repeat that. Asons could have a staff number of 5 and they will still be eligible for the £300,000. They are not subject to any monitoring of staff numbers for their grant funding agreement. Under provision of the grant funding, it also states 3.3, the authority shall within 7 working days of such request advance to Asons a sum equal to 20% of the qualifying costs incurred. At the scrutiny meeting, it was stated by Margaret Asquith, the Chief Executive, that Asons had receipts for expenditure of £500,000 on refurbishment costs. Therefore, it means Asons is only entitled to £100,000. On further research, we discovered that Asons had made a statement regarding this in which they said £600,000 in total on the refurbishment and interior. To qualify for the £180,000 they have already taken, they will need to spend a further £900,000 on the refurbishment and interior of Asons office block. So let's just clarify this. Bolton Council has handed £300,000 of taxpayers' money to a company that was only eligible for £120,000. They have overpaid them by £180,000. To make matters worse, the budget of the strengthening the office market in 2015 was reduced from £1.5 million to £500,000. A fact that Margaret Asquith is unaware about, which means they handed over 60% of that allocation to a single company. As far as we're concerned, this is misappropriation of funds. Now, if you remember, Bolton Council has reassured us that the Asons scandal is being investigated by independent auditors KPMG. We've spoken to a number of independent auditors about this independent audit. What Bolton Council failed to mention was that KPMG are responsible for the council's annual accounts, which in our opinion would be a threat of self-review. We've been told that in the annual accounts there is a good system of control. Yet, if the KPMG inquiry into Asons had any concerns, they'd actually be questioning their own work. No action will be taken though, no acceptance of failure, and no staff at Bolton Council will be fired. Nothing will change with Margaret Asquith as the Chief Executive, Helen Gorman as the Borough Solicitor, the cabal of Bolton Council officers protecting each other, and Labour Council dominating our Town Hall. The senior officer for Bolton Council's legal department that authorised the grant funding agreement for the Asons deal needs to be held accountable. All councils are not like our council. Bolton Council is a complete, unique, corrupt exception that has thrived on the apathy of its constituents. They are hoping they can sweep this all away like they did for the former Chief Executive £90,000 payoff. Do not let them. Please share our video so that as many people as possible can be made aware of what is taking place at Bolton Council. Thank you.